everyone, and welcome to Mom Your Own Way. I'm Lily Coco, and today I have Alyssa Lindquist with me, and we're going to talk about prioritizing yourself as a mom. Not necessarily just putting yourself always forward. Of course, you have your kids to worry about, but making sure your cup is full, making sure you're taking care of yourself. Something I personally believe is, happy babies come from happy moms. So we're going to talk about doing things for yourself as well as just her motherhood in general. So let's get started. Hi, Alyssa.
Hey Lily, how are you?
I'm doing so good. Thank you for joining me. I'm excited to get to know you. Absolutely. Oh, sometimes I spaz out, and this is one of those moments, but I'm like, let's talk about your podcast. And then I'm like, wait, let's talk about your motherhood. Wait, let's talk about, I'm just so already ready. Yay! Well, let's get started just with your motherhood. And prior to hopping on, I met your daughter, Riley, who's going to be 8 in 2 weeks. So that's exciting.
Yes. Yeah, time goes so quick. I really don't know where 8 years have gone.
Is she your only baby?
No, so I have an almost 8-year-old Riley, and then I have another little girl, Taylor, who is 5.
Aww.
She's in kindergarten. Yes.
Sweet.
2 little girls.
Are you trying for more? Is this going to be it for you? Do you know?
Well, we are in that boat of like, do we have one more? Do we not? And I'm definitely more in the camp of one more.
Okay.
My husband is like a big basketball guy, and he's just like, 2 is our number. We play man-to-man defense. We don't play zone defense. So he's good with 2, but I don't know. I'm still not quite there.
I thought you were going to be like, he's a basketball coach. And I was like, all right, he wants a team. He wants a team.
No. He wants man-to-man defense.
Okay. Well, what about trying for a boy? And then it could be him and his son man-to-man defense.
Yeah, I mean, I've said that to him too, and he loves being a girl dad. He's like, I have like no feeling of like, I would love a son. Of course, he'd be happy with the son, but he's very content with his girls, which is nice.
That's so sweet. Well, tell me how your motherhood started. Let's start with Riley and get to Taylor, and I'd love to talk about your podcast as well, and just talk about. I want to talk about. Like filling your cup, like you said, as a mom. I'm definitely someone who needs to learn that. I often forget. My husband tries to encourage me really hard. He's like, just go take time for yourself. And you know what I do is I go and look at videos of my baby.
Yes. I feel like a lot of us fall into that.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I first became a mom to Riley, it's a big shift, right? And you go into motherhood, you have this baby that you're carrying with you, and it's a lot of focus on your child. Rightfully so, right?
Yeah.
Like you're growing this human being. You want them to be healthy. And then you're sort of thrown into motherhood with a decent amount of guidance on the parenting aspect. But I think as moms, a lot of focus and attention goes to those kids, so we lose a bit of that, right? And so when I became a new mom, I found myself really overwhelmed. I struggled with nursing, and I felt this tremendous pressure to continue nursing, even though it really was weighing on me mentally. She wasn't feeding well, so she wasn't sleeping well. We were both super sleep deprived, and I just felt so burnt out, so overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I think that's really where this journey for me on prioritizing my well-being as well as my child's came into play. And I think when my second daughter was born, we had a very similar situation where she had some like pretty major tummy issues, and we just decided earlier on that, we were going to bottle feed her. And I got a lot of negative feedback from others and well-meaning advice from a lot of people about, breast is best. And so I felt this overwhelming pressure again with my second daughter about what was best for my kid, without stopping for a second to think about what might be best for all of us. And that includes what is best for me, right? And so that the journey with that for me has really been eye-opening in like kind of viewing motherhood from a different lens of what can I do in moments to show up for myself, that allows me to fill my cup so that I can pour into my kids' cups, you know? So I've made it my mission in life to help moms see their value beyond what they do and beyond what they feel like the standards or expectations for their motherhood is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just feel really passionate about it.
I love that. Yeah. I think it's super important. It's kind of like, you know, if you're on the plane and they say, hey, put on your mask first before you help your kid. Because if you pass out, what's then? You know, who's going to help your kid then? So I do believe you have to be at your best to make sure you can show up for your kid, to make sure you can actually help them, to make sure you can be there emotionally, physically. I think sleep deprivation is something that a lot of moms hit, especially when like the newborn stage. And I think you're also right about how there are a lot of ways that people kind of prep you for the parenthood part of the whole thing, but not necessarily of how to take care of yourself. So it's like, okay, you prepare, you give birth, and then you're just taking care of this baby. I felt like I was constantly running, and I still feel like I'm still running.
Yes.
And I can't kind of catch a breath sometimes. And it's hard because I feel like there isn't that discussion of like, okay, well, what is it that you need to do to make sure that you are getting enough sleep or eating well or taking the breaks, or how are the responsibilities maybe within your household or within your work, like whatever it is that you need to make sure gets done, who's taking care of those, and having that discussion.
Yes. And I think that's like a big part of it, right? Because we have a lot of responsibilities in motherhood, and there's a lot that we're shouldering and, you know, taking care of, right? It's like, I think sometimes self-care gets a bad rap because it's almost, self-care has kind of become this like almost dirty word, right? Where it's like almost more of a burden, right?
Yeah.
It's like everyone's telling you, take care of yourself. But it's like, okay, like how am I going to find the time for that? And then you almost like feel guilty when you don't. And then like you also have those, like a lot of moms experience like mom guilt feelings, like if they're taking time for themselves, right, away from their child. And there's so much in there, right? Like so much to that.
That's where I find myself struggling the most, is that when I do get the time that I've asked for, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been with a baby for 24 hours now, I'm on the 5th day, like I need a second more than, you know, a break to go to the bathroom, or more than a 20-minute shower. I just need to decompress even with that. And as soon as I step away, then I feel bad because I'm like, well, I'm the one that knows her language best, because we're still developing words, and like I know her eye looks, I know her things, and at the same time I'm like, well, she needs to learn that there are other ways of communication, not just with mom, and I know she's now ready for that. But then I feel bad. I'm like, what if she needs me? What if something was wrong? What if I need to comfort her? And I know those are all the expectations and the things that I'm setting up in my own mind, in my own head.
Sure.
But it
still doesn't make it not hard, right?
Yeah, and so I struggle overcoming that, to be like, and I in my head I'm thinking like, what if she's thinking like, well, why did mommy leave me? Mommy's my best friend, and why doesn't she want to hang out with me? And so I'm like, I do. I just need a second sometimes. So the mom guilt, it's so hard to explain that, because I feel like when I wasn't a mom and I heard it, I was like, what does that even mean?
Yes.
And then it almost doesn't even explain the fact that like you feel bad for being away.
Yes. It's like you're craving that time. You want that time so desperately, and then you get that time, and then it's almost like, wait, I don't know about this. Right?
Yeah. You know that, have you seen The Notebook?
Yes.
You know, the part where he's like, what do you want?
Yes.
What do you want? I feel like that's
Yeah.
the constant motherhood of like, well, do you want a break or do you want to be with a baby? It's like, what do you want? And you're like,
Yes.
I don't know. I want both. I
Yes.
want both somehow.
Yes. Yes. It's hard. And I think, you know, a big part of it is just like recognizing that like what you're thinking in those moments is like your mom guilt, right? Like even just like drawing awareness to it sometimes helps, because you're like, oh, okay, like I'm feeling this like guilty, anxious, overwhelmed feeling when I'm like taking this time for myself. But like, okay, like I know like when I start feeling like that, like it's probably that mom guilt talking and not like truly who I am, right? Because like a lot of the mom guilt comes from like beliefs about what we feel like a good mother does, right? So it's like in your situation where you're feeling like, oh, well, I know what my daughter needs best. Like she's missing me. Like I want to be there. And probably underneath that is this feeling of like a good mom is there for her kids in all those moments, right? Which is a completely normal belief to have, but it's triggering that mom guilt, right? So like even just being aware of that's what's going on can like help. At least it does for me. At least it does for me. Like when I have those moments where I'm like my kids need me, like who's gonna tickle their back and sing them Twinkle Twinkle like for bedtime, like if I go out to dinner with my friends, like okay, like I'm still a good mom. My husband can handle this. He can do the twinkle twinkle. You know, like everything's going to be okay, right?
Yeah. I like the idea of naming it. I think it's important with like emotions also, because sometimes I'll take the personality of an emotion. So if I'm feeling upset, I become upset, whereas I'm trying to now like label that emotion. So like, okay, well, I'm upset. Well, why? Let's talk about it and work it through. And similarly with this mom guilt of like, okay, it's not me talking. It doesn't make me a bad mom, but it's this expectation that I had set up to myself. And because I'm not meeting my own expectations that are often unrealistic, you know, in my own head, I'm with her literally 24/7 without a break to pee. And then when I'm like, oh, I peed by myself, how dare I, you know, and I mentally punish myself for those things. And I like you know, you bring up this, because behind it all is all of us just trying to be a good mom. And it's this like cultural society thing, things we see online, especially in today's age. You see the Pinterest, the Instagram, the TikTok, where you're like, oh, well, they're doing this. And is it that I'm not doing it or I should be doing it more? And this comparison kind of starts. And that's what's really talking almost. So that with your own expectations and trying to just mingle that, I don't know, sometimes for me personally does take a lot of time. And then I'm like, I should not even have that. So then I'll have even more time for like my kid or myself or whatever. But like, it's just taking up so much time mentally that is a waste of time.
Yes. Right. It's one of those things where it's like this mom guilt, these thoughts, these like the negative self-talk, like the anxious feelings fuel behavior, which then can like really impact your like daily life and like how you view yourself, right? Like almost like your worthiness, right? So I think as a mom, you know, this is deep rooted stuff, right? It's like you can't just turn it off. It's there. It's just being kind to yourself, and like as those feelings come up, like giving yourself permission to like explore what those feelings are. And like just come at it from like a loving perspective, right? A love for yourself. And then understanding that we're all experiencing this. It's normal, but not letting it like control and dictate your life, right?
I like that. I like the idea of, almost for anything, but especially with motherhood, of giving yourself grace to say, it's all right that I feel this way, or it's all right, you know, like motherhood is so beautiful and there are so many things, but it's all right not to enjoy every second of it, because there are going to be things that come up that you're not ready for. Just as the child is learning things for the very first time, you're a mom, especially for the first time, like, or it's second or third, like every kid's different. So there's always going to be something new to learn. And okay when we're learning to come across frustrations or especially as an adult, because you kind of have this expectation of yourself to be able to do things or to understand things or to comprehend things. And when they're unexpected and new, it's, fear starts to rise. And then what do we do when there's fear? It's like, okay, do we face it or do, what is it? Fight or flight. Fight or flight. Yeah. And so it's plus there are already so many hormonal emotions that are bubbling up inside you through all of those things that like all of those things kind of slapped onto one another. If you don't address the issues, it can actually bubble over and then somebody can get hurt. If there's hot water boiling over, there's a high chance you can, emotionally hurt not only yourself, but also the baby that you're trying so hard to accommodate and be loving towards. Yeah. It's so silly how there's so much. Yeah. And there's so many things that are instinctual that we want to do. It's like we just feel it inside. Yes. And the other side of like this cultural idea of things that we should follow or do or don't do. Yeah. And people, especially now, I love that there's so much information, but it's now at a point of overwhelming information where now everyone kind of feels like an expert. And so the everyone's favorite unsolicited mom advice that just kind of comes at you real hot, Yes. Then it does. It immediately kind of turns into, oh, I'm not doing a good job. Yeah. Something I started doing recently, it kind of almost started as a joke. When my daughter pets our dog, we say, good dog, and she kind of did it to me. She petted me. I said, oh, you think mommy's a good mom? I'm a good mom. And so I started saying that, and it started as that joke, but now I take pride in it. I'm like, I am a good mom. I'm a good mommy. I'm doing a good job. Yeah. And I started thinking about it more. I'm like, athletes, musicians, celebrities, they're like, I'm the best athlete. I'm like, my job is to be a mom and I'm going to be a good mom. I'm doing a good job. I need to believe in myself if I want to make sure anybody else even believes it, including my daughter first and foremost. And it's been this kind of little change of like, I can tell myself I'm a good mom. I don't even care if I hear it from other people. My daughter just petted me and gave me a kiss on my shoulder because I'm a good mom. So isn't that all that should matter?
Yes. Yeah. And I think you're completely right when you say, like, I can tell myself I'm a good mom. Like, you know the love your daughter has for you. You know your worthiness as a mom. And that may look different than someone else's version of a good mom. But we're all good moms in our own way. Yeah. Like, we love our kids. And whether we, co-sleep or sleep train or nurse or bottle feed or, eat all the stuff or eat all organic, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, like, we love our kids and our kids love us, and that's what matters most.
Yeah. I think as long as you're not like neglecting your kid.
Oh, you did it.
I did
it.
Yay! How do I do that?
I don't know, honey. Maybe on the bottom. Let's see. All right, there you go. She has her Nintendo Switch.
Wow, that's awesome. Those are really pretty colors, too.
Will you close the door, kiddo?
Yeah.
Thank you.
How sweet.
Yeah.
I was going to mention, as long as your kid kind of goes to bed full and loved, just feeling loved.
Yes.
And that's going to look different from every family. That's going to be very different under every circumstances. And again, every kid is different and every mom's different. Everybody's different. And so that relationship is going to look very different. Like, my daughter loves reading books. And so that's how we show love right now, is reading books to her over and over and over again. But if your kid doesn't like books, that's not what you should be doing. Like, so it doesn't matter if you see me reading books and doing that. There's no way it should feel like, oh, maybe that's what I should be doing too. You just got to explore your own relationship with your kid and figure out what's your love language. How is it that we're going to connect, and what am I going to need to figure out to do that you feel loved?
Yes, 100%. And I think often on social media we see everyone's highlight reels, and so we see this perspective of one family, and it's hard not to compare, right? And I think it's important to like be true to you, be true to your values, your family's values, like what your kid needs.
Yeah,
that may look very different than someone else.
Yeah, it's so different. I struggle with this whole social media thing because there is this comparison that just happens. It just happens.
Yep.
And the only way not to see it or be a part of it is if you completely exclude yourself from it.
Yeah.
But I like the idea because I gather so much information and these ideas and these new ways, or I learn something new. And so I'm in this, like, I'm on this fence that I'm sitting like a chicken, and I'm like, do I like it? Do I not? Do I, you know, and through TikTok, I've gathered like a mom following who some moms have like commented like, what should I do? Or, you know, reach out with questions. And I feel, again, on that same fence, I'm like, who am I to give you any advice? And well, if you're asking, let me tell you what I'm doing in case it could help you.
Yes. I think there's this like fine line, right? It's like, we want to be supportive and helpful to each other, right? And there's definitely times where I need that support or encouragement or advice for something in motherhood that I'm trying to figure out or struggling with, you know? And I think it's just a matter of like taking the well-meaning advice of other people and then like soaking it in and really deciding whether or not that makes sense for you. Yeah. Right? Like just making sure that you stay aligned with what you need, what you desire, what your values are. Yeah. And then like taking it like, great, cool. Like if someone else's advice is helpful to you, like I've gotten plenty of advice from other moms that has been so helpful. You know, it's just a matter of making sure that it's right for you.
Yeah. I've faced a lot of unsolicited advice when it comes to my baby's sleep. She started sleeping like through the night at 12 weeks, but in general, she, at like 9 months, she started going to bed at like 2 a.m., like just really late. Yeah. And then now she's at 11, which is still like super late because I guess most babies go to bed at 7, but it works with our schedule. Yes. We have the great wake window. She takes perfect naps. Like she's developing at this rate that's bonkers to me. I just can't comprehend it. And so, but I'll have these moms who, when it's from my friends, I'm like, I totally appreciate the advice. Yeah. It's more so when it's from strangers who kind of like, well, you should do this and you should do that. And I'm like, it kind of almost makes me feel like, well, I shouldn't even be saying anything about her sleep because we're fine with it. It works for our family. It's because she also wakes up at 9 instead of 6 in the morning. So like she's on the same time as us and it makes it so simple for us. Totally. And I understand that advice comes from this like loving place of like, well, if this works for me, let me tell you how you should also do it. And I'm like, I thank you. It's a good idea. I've almost, I want to like coin good idea and be like, that's a good idea. It's a great idea. I am so happy that it works for you. Yes. It's not what's going to work for my family because my husband and I stay up to like 4 in the morning. He does music. I do a lot of content creation. Like we both work from home, so we're here. Yes. But that's not going to work for a family who, you know, the mom and dad, somebody has to go to work at 5 in the morning and they have to be asleep by 9. That's a different schedule. And you should find something that works for your schedule. Yes. And I'm happy for you if it works, you know, like.
Yes. And I think you have it right? Like like people have given you their advice and, you know, it's often well-meaning. Like they found something that works for them. So they're trying to like, you know, help it work for other people. Yeah. But you took that and then really just decided, you know what, like that's not what we need. That's not what's going to work for us. And like staying true to that. Yeah. And it's like, it speaks to like, we're all on our own unique journey. Totally. We all have our own individual unique lives that we're all living. Yeah. And we all are just trying to do the best we can. Right. Mm-hmm. And just staying true to ourselves.
I think that was one of my main things about this podcast was it was something on TikTok, but I had all these comments and I started recognizing how big mom shaming was. And I addressed it to some of my friends and they're like, no, it's really huge. Like, And I'm such a supportive person. Like, if I hear my friend is doing something, I just want to be like, oh my gosh, that is right. Let's all, yes. And for me to see another side of something, like, I'm just not very familiar personally with this, like, you're doing something so bad, and then it's multiple people who don't know you, who don't pay your bills, who don't know your personal lifestyle, who don't know your bank account, who don't even have your phone number to talk to you, but they think they have this knowledge of you. Yes. And I was just blown away. I was like, this is bonkers that everyone has a mom. So there's this big ocean of moms. We're all together. We're all moms. And we could be supporting and lifting one another up. And it could be this like discussion of how we do things. And you take things that benefit you and you say, hey, I'm glad this works for you, but it won't work for me. But it's a conversation instead of this almost like a political debate where it's like, I will do everything in my power to make sure you know you're wrong. And like, I just try to live my life, but like.
Yes. And it's no wonder so many moms struggle with anxiety and overwhelm and feeling like some to the point of like depression, right? Because it's like, there's so much weight. Especially like that mental burden. Yeah. Right? It's hard.
I think that's what should be really introduced when you're getting ready for motherhood. A lot of it's like, how do you take care for the baby? But I think a big part of it, like if this was a book, a chapter should be, how do you take care of your mental state? Because there's, like you said, there's this emotional toll. And if you break it down, playing with a kid is simple. It's not easy, but it is simple. You're just making sure they don't get hurt, and you just got to be in the room.
Right.
But it is emotionally tolling because it's like, everything has to be almost Disneyland, and you're like, yes, a green circle, I love it. Like, let's talk about it for an hour, It's so it's just exhausting because you're kind of putting on this show, and then on top of that, you're like, well, I want to make sure they're eating well, but that's not what I saw this other mom do. And it's like, well, my own mother said this, and so should I be following that example, or is this better? And it's this internal battle that we're having. Oh, something that made me think when you talked about advice is, maybe it's something personal, and we should, well, for me personally, I should look at how I take advice, because sometimes I want to take it like someone's an expert telling me that, and so I have this combative, defensive response to it, where it's like, technically, I should be able to receive 1 million advice, like, and then just say, thanks, but I appreciate you sharing that with me, but it's just not going to work, and like move on. It shouldn't necessarily live in my head rent free and just occupy that space, because I don't have that space. I got other stuff going on.
Right. And it's easier said than done though, right? Yeah. Like, it's so hard. Yeah. It's so hard because we're all just trying to do the best we can. So we're getting all this input about what the best way is. Yeah. It's really hard not to like internalize it, right? And 100%. see where you match up in like whatever area it's in. Yeah. Right? And I think if in motherhood we spent more time talking to ourselves the way we talk to our best friend, like things would be a lot gentler. Yeah. Motherhood would feel a lot more fulfilled. Right? Yeah. If we spoke to ourselves in our motherhood in the way that like we would, the kindness that and love that we'd want to show our best friend in a moment of struggle.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. I tend to give like my friends, when they ask for it, really good advice. And then when it comes to listening myself, I'm like, well, no, I won't do that. I won't take the time for myself, or I won't take the break, but I'll recommend it to anyone else. And I'm like, no, you will benefit from this, but I have a hard time taking it. And I want to take what you said, and I want to talk to myself as my best friend. I want to encourage myself. I want to support myself and say, hey, like my daughter does, I want to say, hey, you're a good mom. You're doing a good job. And I think more moms should say, I often see those posts on Facebook. It's like, something, you're not a bad mom, or something, you're not a bad mom. But it seemed like the phrase kind of comes up so frequent in it. And everybody likes it and shares it because they have had so many times they do feel like a bad mom. Mm-hmm. But I almost want to see those things. It's like, you're a good mom. Like, you're like doing your affirmations. Yeah, just like you're doing it. You're doing it. And it's it's silly, if you think of like school days or like if somebody said a comment to you and you take it in, so like bullying or like online bullying through comments, we kind of read it and we try to throw it away, but we still take it in.
Yeah.
This is the same thing. So when we hear those comments, plus our own expectations, and it's not only now about us but another human being, it's like they have this double effect, and they're bigger. It's exponential weight on us. And so but it doesn't need to be it doesn't need to be there. But I also understand that it's hard to just shake it off and say you don't care, because you do hear things or you hear advice or you hear a way that somebody's doing something, and then you start analyzing it.
Yeah, and I think it starts just like with an awareness of it, and like recognize like we're all dealing with this, like we're all going through our own personal things, right?
Yeah.
And own personal motherhood, unique motherhood, and like just giving yourself the space to like learn and grow slowly. Like it can be small steps, like, and I do think like sometimes these things may not go away, but it's just not allowing it to like control your life. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's also easy to forget, like when we're kids, our whole point as we grow up is to be able to take care of ourselves. And that's technically our whole responsibility, is to take care of our own individual self. But then as mothers, we get an addition, because now you're taking care of someone else. Yeah. But if you give that 100% to your kid, you're no longer taking care of yourself. But you still need to, because you need to survive, you need to keep going, and you need to still grow. You're still a human being. And so I think it's kind of trying to remember that, to say, yes, I am a mother, but I'm still a human being who needs to take care of herself. So whether it's the necessities, or if you're working, you've got passions, you've got hobbies, you've got dreams, how do you continue going with those? Because again, like I'm a perfect example of somebody who doesn't do this. And I'll get in these funks because then I have these ideas and I'll write them all down, and I have 5,000 notes of things I want to do, or I have an idea on, or do a video or a blog, whatever. Yeah. And I don't get to them because I'm helping my kid. Yeah. And then I'll call it like depressed, where I'm just like, man, I'm not doing a good enough job because I didn't get these things accomplished. I don't feel like I'm being productive because I didn't get all those things done, and I get down on myself, and then that of course flows over, and I get a little down. My husband's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, well, I'm tired, I didn't do this and I didn't do that, and I didn't, and it becomes a thing where technically what I want to do is not let it build up so it doesn't become a thing. Right. And it's, allowing yourself to like take a step back and really look at it from the perspective of like, okay, all the work things I want to do, is there certain things on that list or ideas that you have that feel just like you feel like you should do them, or you like really truly like want to be doing them, right? And it's like, it's kind of it's tough, deep work, but it's like figuring out what matters to you, and like what matters to you in moments, right? I think that's important, is I guess prioritizing things. Prioritizing. And maybe perhaps I've seen this for like time management help, or if you write down an activity, like washing dishes or reading the book or whatever, and then writing 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and kind of knowing what that time takes, because then you can just say, hey, can I have 5 minutes? Will you watch the baby for 5 minutes while I complete this task? Or, hey, this task is going to have this much. Or, hey, grandma's going to come watch the baby for 40 minutes. Oh, 40 minutes? I can do either these 4 things that will fit into this 40-minute slot, or this one thing, but what's going to take the priority, what needs to be done sooner, what needs to be done faster, and kind of just, I guess, treating it almost like a job, where it's like, okay, well, these are my tasks to get done. When are they due? And making sure they get done, and holding yourself accountable for it. At least that's what I need to do, because then if I fall behind, that's where I start really lagging and talking to myself really poorly. Like I know everyone does, the way we talk to ourselves is just gross. Like, it's just like, you're, to me, I say like, oh, you're dumb. You didn't do this. You didn't do this. You're lazy. You didn't, like, you could have done this. Well, why didn't you finish this? And like, physically and in reality, I do so much and on top, but I'm still mad at myself for not doing more.
Yes. Yep. 100%. And I think so many of us deal with that. Right? Like, we're our own worst critic.
Yeah.
and I think it's hard.
It makes it hard in motherhood, because not only are we, I mean, before motherhood, I would be my own critic, and then it's hard to just deal with, you know? But then now, I'm still doing that while taking care of somebody else, while worrying about what they're feeling, their emotional needs, their physical needs, their just necessities. So you're doing a work for two, and then if you have another one and another one and another one, it can just become really overwhelming.
Yes. And I think it's a matter of like understanding what expectations you're holding yourself to, and trying to like give yourself kindness and ask yourself, like, is this truly like a reasonable expectation for myself right now? Like, or is this something that I need to like really dive into deeper and see where that's coming from, see what, like, if I can like do, like, you know, these like tasks that we have throughout our days, if there's tasks that you do that like need to get done but like don't really like bring you joy, like washing dishes or something, like what can I do to like simplify this so it's not so much of like a burden and a to-do, right? Like it's finding ways to simplify what doesn't matter to you as much, like relatively speaking, and then like being able to prioritize what does more. That makes sense, right?
Yeah. You know what I think would be helpful for me is, you know how before you give birth, you can write out like a birth plan of things that you're expecting, things that you want to do. I think it would benefit me kind of writing that out of my own expectations. So what are my expectations? You know, is it playing with the baby all day and making sure I get a shower or 3 showers a week, you know, or making sure I vacuum twice a week. I want to make sure, you know, just writing out all these things. And then more so where I really lack is communicating these things sometimes to my husband, because I have my own conversations.
Totally.
And so not only writing those out, those responsibilities, the chores, the things that need to get done, but also communicating them and maybe delegating them when you need to make sure, hey, my burden is really heavy right now. If you could do this, I can do this, and we can be done at the end of the day.
And then that like mom guilt can kind of come into that, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's so many layers to all of it, and it makes it really hard. Yes.
I kept seeing these like TikToks or whatever of mom guilt, and I just didn't get it. I was like, what are you guys talking about? And then you become a mom, and it just like, it almost rings like a giant church bell over your head.
Totally.
Like, dun, 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 dun. And you're like, man, I'm just new. You know, you started a new job, and they have like the 90-day period where it's like, hey, for these 90 days, you just figure it out. Like, you kind of get away with a lot of stuff.
Yes.
That, plus on top of that, you know, the stats are like, if you're a new business, if you don't fail within the first 3 years, it's already like you don't make the money in 3 years, you really struggle. And again, coming back to that thinking of if your mom is a business, you know, you gotta keep track of your responsibilities in your to-do list. And if you don't figure out within the first 90 days, it's okay. You just started. And if you don't make it, you know, if you're not making profit the first 3 years, it's okay. You're just working out all the kinks, all the things, all the stuff. And like, as the baby's growing, you are also growing as a mom and learning and developing and finding new ways. And it's a trial and error. And you listen to advice and you take it. And then you say, nope, that didn't work, or it did work. Like, it's such a moving beast. It's literally an ocean where the waves can just like crash over you, or if you kind of surrender and let it float, you just kind of go with it kind of easy. But every time I'm like, I'll have this kind of discovery in my own. It's always so much easier said than then. Yes. And then you're like, okay, well, I really want to put this in practice. And then something comes up, something arises. And like any habit, it's hard to kind of kick, you know. It's almost like an addiction of motherhood, of falling, I don't want to say victim to it, but letting it take over you and letting
Yeah.
it take over the conversation, where it's, you know, with my husband, it's often on top of the conversation of like,
Yeah.
I feel like I didn't do this, or I should have done this, or, you know.
Yes. Yeah, and I think we're all there. I really do. And I think starting small is like the best way to go. Like giving yourself some space to like you were saying, like the first 90 days of parenthood, like that can continue, like giving yourself the space to like learn and like slowly but surely get to where you want to be.
Yeah.
Like, whatever that looks like for you.
Yeah.
Right? It's just a matter of like making a sort of commitment to yourself to do like even just like a teensy little thing. Like for me, I hate doing dishes, but like something that I give for myself in that moment is I like pop on a podcast or I listen to music, and like I now look forward to like washing dishes after dinner because like that's a little bit
your
of like
time.
me
Yeah.
in that task, you know.
I love that. I started making myself an iced coffee that I have in my little mug, but then I feel like that's my little treat. It's my like midday treat, and I get to make my iced coffee, and then I get to drink it, and you know, it gives me a little bit of energy, of a boost. I enjoy the flavor, so it's like a reward, you know, halfway through the day. And one of my friends started creating this content. She's a beautiful, wonderful mom, but she talks about how she likes to romanticize her idea of being a stay-at-home mom. Yes. So for these, she does a lot of contact naps, and she carries her baby while he naps, and so she'll put on the podcast or her music, and so it's just her doing it while she's spending the time with the baby. Or, I mean, there's different things you can do that will fit your lifestyle, but I think acknowledging that and starting paying attention and doing that one little thing for you can kind of uplift it. Where you like look forward to it. I started making these really delicious scrambled eggs with goat cheese in the morning. So now when I wake up, I'm like, let's make eggs. I'm going to make eggs. They're going to be delicious. And you like look forward to it. It's this exciting thing instead of like, oh, I have to make breakfast for everybody. And then my baby's going to throw it on the floor. It's like, I get to make this amazingness. It's going to be delicious.
Yes. Yeah.
Now I put some butter on the toast and I air fry it now. So it's like almost like toasty crude, like it's so good. And then
it's so good.
With the goat cheese, it's like smooth and kind of gooey, so you like crunch it, and like it's just good. And so now I'm like, okay, I got that to start my day, a little mid coffee in the afternoon. And kind of I'm trying to like separate these things and give myself almost these like rewards of things to look forward to, like you with the dishes.
And I think it's important to remember that we're all in like different stages in life and in motherhood, and one season it may be harder for you to like find time to like fill your cup, but you can still find creative ways to fill your cup in like small ways, right? And I think it's also a matter of like telling yourself like, look what I already do for myself, right? Like, because you can fall into the trap of like almost like an oxymoron, like the catch-22. It's like you're beating yourself up for like not taking time for yourself and not like uplifting yourself for not like taking time to like, you know, mindfulness and all of that. But then it's like it almost like comes back at you when you're not taking that time, and then you're beating yourself up for not taking that time.
That's where I live. That's where I live. That's my flat. That's where I take the elevator to, and I stay there and I live there on my couch, is this idea of I'm not doing enough. I should be spending time doing other things. Instead of thinking this way, but here I am thinking about it right now, wasting time. You know, it's tricky. It's tricky. It's so tricky. And there's so many things that fall into it. You know, it's for me, I've mentioned this a lot. I might as well call it trauma podcast, but I'm learning through my own childhood trauma, like so many people do. So it's I think that plus your own expectations, plus these like cultural, social media ideas. And then on top of that, just personal emotions, because you know, if you're breastfeeding, your period had stopped, or if, you know, you're just being a mom, so there's different
Yep.
emotions.
Yes.
It's so clouded. It's so much for one person to kind of navigate through.
Yes. Yes.
And
Right.
really knowing what's true. I think that's really the hard part is like, are those my real thoughts, or am I just tired?
Yeah.
And I'm feeling this way, and my tired voice or the mom guilt is talking, not necessarily the truth, but this other idea.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, like, at least in my experience, 99% of the time, it's not actually you. Like, if it's this negative self-talk,
Yeah.
it's most likely coming from something else.
Yeah.
Because the true you is a lot kinder. Like, the true me is a lot kinder to myself
Yeah.
than a lot of the negative thoughts that we spiral through because of, you know, upbringings, expectations, media, hormonal changes, sleep deprivation, you know, like eating habits, like whatever it may be. There's a lot of things that like put us in these like negative headspaces.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to kind of keep up with it. And I struggle. I have ADHD on top of everything else.
Yeah, my husband does too.
It's fun.
Yeah.
But it comes with its own full bag of bricks.
Sure. Yeah.
And one of the ADHD things is like, I guess kind of picking up hobbies or like finding this new thing and you're really like attracted to it and you do it until you find another, you know, and I do it with food often where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be drinking lemon water, and I just go crazy drinking this lemon water until I forget that one day. And then it stops. And then I'll look back on it and I'm like, dang it, I was supposed to be doing that. And I feel bad and I hold these expectations of, you know, almost calling myself a failure for not following through. But then I'm like, oh, but I started doing this other thing. And then along with motherhood, it's like, well, I was doing certain things because my baby wasn't moving yet. You know, she was just potato laying there. And now she's on the run.
Yeah, right.
And I'm keeping her out of cabinets, or I'm making sure, because she wants to reach for everything and try everything. And so sometimes I hold myself to the standards of
a different season.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
And it's kind of hard to accept that, like, hey, things are changing and it's okay for things not to be aligned, not to match.
And with kids, like, they change so quickly.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up, for sure.
They grow so quickly, too. I'm, for the second week, struggling with these shirts that are just too small for her head, and they're, like, proper size, but I just, yesterday went and cut them all. Now she's going to be wearing these V-necks because
you're smart. You're so resourceful.
That's just what we're doing. I'm like, I can't keep up with this. It's so fast.
Yes. I'm tall. I'm 6 feet tall.
Oh, wow.
My husband's 6'3".
Wow.
So our daughters are really tall for their age. Like, they're both measuring in like the 99th percentile for height.
Wow, yeah.
So they are growing like weeds. Like, their leggings, like, I feel like every 2 seconds I'm buying like the next size up in leggings. Like,
it's so much.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yesterday I was thinking, because I have these crop tops from my pre-mom days.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to wear them anymore. I'm like, I got to be a little more modest now. I'm a mom. Like, I want to dress more mommy-like. And now I'm like, I can just slap one of these crop tops on her and she would wear it well.
Totally.
Like, I'm fine with her wearing a little, like, if it's a little bit more oversized.
Yeah.
It's just, once it doesn't fit no more, it doesn't fit no more. And you're like, what's this rag? What am I going to do with this shirt? You can't put it on a dog. You like.
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
Huh.
Yes, I know. Thankfully, Riley's things I can pass right down to her sister, because she's kind of following the same trajectory, like, right behind her sister, which is nice. But then, like, once Tay's done with it, or, like, Riley needs new stuff, it's like, I don't know. Yes, they grow so quick.
I was so lucky. One of my friends, actually, she's going to be doing the podcast on Sunday, but
oh, nice.
I'm so thankful that I've had people who want to come on. One of my biggest fears was like, nobody's going to want to come on. And
no, this is awesome. This is so great. I love what you're doing.
Thank you. I love talking to moms. I love just opening up this conversation, talking about, you know, all this stuff that really does matter that I don't remember seeing anywhere when I was trying to research things that I should prepare myself for. I want the real conversation. 100%. I want to know the real stuff.
Yeah.
And not only how to prepare, like, for my baby, I want to, what we're talking about, how do I take care of myself through all of this?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And how do I remember to? Oh, but, so this girl, she, her baby's like a year ahead of mine, and she messaged me. She's like, hey, do you want all of Brianna's clothes? Just pay shipping. So I did, and for $50 got like 100 pieces of clothes.
Amazing. Yes.
And like they're all good, even if they had like I don't think any of them had a stain, but like if they did, my kid's gonna get them dirty.
Right.
We're still gonna get new clothes from like grandma's and our own stuff, but I'm all for like let's trade up this clothes. I mean, it only lives on them for a week now, like 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. I know.
Let's just keep let's help each other out. There's all these moms constantly. Every day there's a new mom who's gonna need new clothes. I'm just like, how do we get this going where we're constantly just helping and sharing all these clothes?
Yeah, we have a local mom's club near me, and one mom had this brilliant idea. We all met up at the playground one day with all of the hand-me-down clothes that like our kids have grown out of, and it was essentially just like come and like shop everybody's clothes. It was great because then like, moms with like older kids, I could grab some things for Riley, and then like a mom with like a 3-year-old, I like passed along some stuff to her for her daughter.
Awesome.
It was such a great idea. I think we should do it again.
So smart. Yeah, you could do like a market where you set up, I don't know, it's like these are newborns, these are 1-year-old, 2, 3, and then you just kind of go and put the produce in your basket, whatever you need. That's so smart.
Yes. Yeah, I thought that was a really clever idea.
I love that.
Yeah.
See, this is what I love about motherhood is the community feeling of it.
100%.
The supportive, the helpful, the kind, the sharing, just really supportive part of it. But I was really blind to the mom shaming. I didn't even know that was a term. And then when you experience or see it, you're like, whoa.
Holy cow. Yes.
Y'all are mean.
Yes.
What is that?
I know. And I really want to like bring out like all the good things that we're talking about in motherhood and like the supporting and encouraging and uplifting. Like we got enough going on to like have other moms tear us down, right?
But it could be like an emotional thing too, where it's like, because as a mom, if someone's so overtired and so sick of things that their way of expressing that stuff and getting it out of their system is to almost lash out on another mom, 100%. Where it's like, or somebody, got mad at them, so now they're doing it the same way, almost like you do with, like, if you had an abusive parent, you're more likely to also, so it's this way of like, well, I got yelled at, so I'm going to yell at you as well. And
Yes.
I don't know, when I see it, I really struggle. I'm like, y'all are so mean, like... Especially with social media where everyone's, it's not at the park, you're just talking. It's people who can just say anything and everything, and you're just like, I don't even know you. I've never had you at my house. Like,
right. Yes, I know.
I really don't understand that. I treat my like podcast or social media as my dinner table. Like if you were at my dinner table, would you say that? No, then get out. Don't follow my pages. Don't like. Why are you at my house?
Right.
Throwing dog poop at me, where I'm just here eating pasta.
I invited you into my home. Yes.
It's
invited you into my podcast, into my world.
But it is so personal. Like with social media, I mean, of course, there's like the filters or whatever you can do, but at the end of the day, you're sharing your family moments, your things that you're going through. It's you're talking to your friends and you're just sharing things at a bigger spectrum. It's not a one-on-one. It's hey, let me just post this for you guys so everyone can see it. And so I do. It's intimate as a dinner, and then somebody just comes in and says, well, this food sucks, you suck, everything sucks, and you're just like, why are you here? Like, go get a hobby, go do anything else, go make your own dinner, at your own dinner table. Like, I don't care, but you do because like you see the comments and then you let them get in your head, and you're like, dang it, they said that I was terrible.
Yes. And I think like you were right when you say like that's probably like has nothing to do with you, and they're just like lashing out, right?
It's so hard to remember that.
Me sometimes when like I get that criticism, it's like, okay, like this hurts and I'm upset about it, but like let me take a step back for a second and be like, okay, they're probably like dealing with some stuff that like I know nothing about, so I'm gonna like just take a step back and remove myself from this situation and let you like do your thing over.
Yeah. I think that's so important to remember, and it's this really interesting way of finding your triggers and finding out, okay, well, why does that upset me? Oh, is it because I have this emotional connection to it because somebody used to say to me when I was little, because I really do feel that way, because, you know, and when something does bother you, that's when it's, you know, your body, your heart, God, whatever, everything is letting you know that's something you should dig into, because at the very end of the day, technically nothing anybody says should affect you, technically, nor positively nor negatively. Like, if we should have the self-confidence to stand strong and know ourselves better than anyone. So whether they say a comment, a negative comment, or a compliment, we should know the truth, whether they're oh, you know, they're just blowing smoke up my ass, or hey, they said this mean thing, but it actually doesn't carry weight. Like, we should be able to stand strong and not waver, yet due to certain things, experiences, whatever. And it's just so funny to me, because that's an easy way to find your triggers and try to start digging deep. But it's always this like painful way of like, I'm upset and they hurt my feelings and this and this, and like at least I fall victim of not immediately looking into it, and I'm like, well, they did this, you know, and you almost want to
no, and I think that's part of like being human, right? Like, we all do that. We're imperfect people, like, you know, no one's perfect. So I think it's like also like giving yourself that space and that kindness too, as you're navigating all this. Because I know, like, for me, when we had Taylor and I wasn't able to nurse, and I had like gone into motherhood with her like, gosh, I really hope this works out for us, and it didn't again. And I made the like really tough decision to like switch to bottle feeding, because that ultimately is what I needed for my mental health, what she needed for like a full tummy. And I had one mom say to me, don't you want what's best for your baby? Why wouldn't you nurse her? And it crushed me. I was in like such a vulnerable, emotional space with it. And so, it took me, like, I think I'm still kind of working through some of that, right? Like, because when I like think to like why that bothered me so much, it's because I felt like I wasn't providing for my daughter in the way that I expected myself to.
Yeah, well, you're not good enough almost. I'm
not good enough, right? Yeah. I'm not being a good enough mom. So, it's like deep stuff.
It stings. It really, it's, I had a similar situation. I struggled with breastfeeding at first, and I wasn't sure how much she was eating, and we ended up doing some bottle feeding for a couple of weeks until I got breastfeeding down. But somebody commented and said, you're not nursing? And I was like, well, we're giving breast milk. It's just through a bottle, and like my husband can help right now. I'm not getting any sleep. Like, I can take breaks, you know. And I was almost spewing these explanations, my defense.
Yes, like you had to defend yourself.
And I still remember it. I still remember it because I felt not good enough, and I was like, I thought I was doing what's best, because now at least I can see how much she's eating. I know she's taking the right amount in. I know the pumping has helped my production, my supply. You know, I was seeing all of these benefits in it. And that's not how this lady saw it. She said, no. And it got me. It's so sad that we allow these things to enter.
And how much nicer would motherhood be if we allow moms the space to learn and grow in their own unique motherhood? You know? I truly believe that the more we allow moms like a kindness and a support and an encouragement and the freedom and space to like really grow within their own motherhood, the better off we'd all be, right? Like, the more fulfilled motherhood would feel, the more free, the more like gentle motherhood would feel, I think.
it's almost like, I know we're all adults and we have grown up, and so we should have high expectations of ourselves. I'm not excusing that, because we are mature, we have education, understanding, we have lived through things, so totally. But also at the same time, if we almost look to one another through a lens of, hey, you're still a kid, you're still a little kid who's just trying their best. Because with our kids, we understand that they're growing. We understand that they're learning. And so we have more patience. We have a little bit more grace and kindness, where we're like, hey, you know what? That didn't work out. That's all right. Do you want to try again? Yeah. Do you want to do it this way? Would you like to do this instead? What if I help you? Do you need help? You know, like, there's the way I'm not saying we need to baby each other. Sure. Or others. But I think there is times where, especially in hardship, where I know I come back to being like a little girl where I almost need my mom, and I just need someone to say, hey, it's going to be all right. Like, what do you need to help? What, you know, do you just, it didn't work out? All right. So let's find a different options. Do you want to do it by yourself? Do you want to do it with help? Are you looking for advice? Do you just want somebody to sit with you and not say anything because you're so tired of advice? Like, just, again, not treating us like babies, but being as kind as we are to kids and say, hey, you're still also a little girl. Right. Because we're still growing. Like, we're still growing while taking someone else who's growing. So, like, if we could just, for a little, because accidents happen, mistakes happen. Like, why are we coming down on people saying, hey, you're doing a terrible job, you're a terrible mom? It's like, especially with social media, because, like, you'll capture this one moment, and then everyone jumps at you, and you're like, of course you're going to yell at me because in this one portion the kid fell, so now you think I'm a terrible mom who never watches my kid. Right. But like, you didn't see all the stuff that I was doing and am doing. You're just judging me on this one snapshot at one time. Yes. Which isn't true, and it isn't real. Right. Yes. Yeah. Yes. I 100% agree, and I think we nurture our kids. I think it's time to, like, nurture the mom. Yeah, I think mom needs a little nurture. I like nurturing. That. Yeah. I like that. Mm-hmm. You know what I also just started thinking about is when we talk about comparison and comparing ourselves to this other thing, I just thought, you know, as others don't know everything that came before that picture and after, I don't know what that mom went through. So even if that 100%. Picture is great, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm not as good as that mom, like, I don't know what she did before or after. Maybe the kids hated taking that picture, and they will forever hate taking pictures because now it's an emotional trauma. Right. And this whole time I'm sitting here like, oh my gosh, I don't take enough pictures with my mom like this mom. But it's like, maybe it's building our relationship stronger with my kid than like, I just don't know. Yes. 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 And I think, like, we all have our strengths in motherhood, right? Like, just because someone else's strength isn't yours doesn't mean you're doing something wrong, right? Yeah. Like, I feel like we could all benefit from each other, right? Like, we all have different things that we're good at. Like, I am not a cook. Like, like, pop a DiGiorno pizza in and call it dinner. You know? But, like, I love creating, like, special moments with my kids for, like, holidays. Like, that's where I shine, you know? So that, like, someone might see those moments that I create for my kids and think I should be doing more of that. But this mom who's seeing that is, like, doing these, like, wonderful meals for her kids. And, like, that's, like, something that she thrives in motherhood, you know? Yeah. Like, I think we all have things that we're I don't know, good at in motherhood, right? You know? Not necessarily good, but, like, things that we're focused on. Yeah, things that we find joy in, and things we're passionate. My husband sent me this picture that I really love, but it's like, there's a crunchy mom, a natural mom, a DIY mom, a crafty mom, a playground mom, an outdoor mom. Like, there's just so many different ways. Yes. But you don't have to be all of them, because when you try, you're just grasping at so many things, you can't even do one of them right. You know, it's just too many things are going on. But because we see so many different examples, like you said, we do want to be like, oh, I want to be the mom that cooks all this stuff and does the crafts and takes them out and does the thing and buys them. And, like, there's not even enough time in a day. Yeah. There just isn't. Half the time they just want to nap anyways. Like, right. Yep. It's that, and remembering that, acknowledging it, and giving yourself grace and kindness, saying, I don't have to do it all.
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
And finding your own way of showing love. And maybe, if your kid just loves sitting there quietly, maybe they don't want to do all those things. They just want you to sit next to them while they play with this one toy.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. Totally.
And so any other example you'll see of motherhood won't at all have any impact on how you should be parenting your kid, because that's not what the kid even wants.
Yeah.
They just want their mom.
Yes.
That's what all kids want. They just want their mom next to them.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Our moms are like, it's your home base. It's your safe zone. It's somebody you know all your life. And I would imagine any kid would just prefer spending time with their mom instead of like, oh, my mom's always gone trying to do these ideas. She's always trying to do this stuff. I wish my mom would just stay home and spend time with me.
Right, yes.
Of course they want to do things, and it's all about balance, but I think it's remembering of like what works for your family, not only for your baby, for you, but for your whole family. And as anything else, like if we're talking about balance, there's going to be certain times where some things will have to wait. Some things will have to be prioritized and go first. And
sometimes things like happen and you have to shift, and it's like, we kind of, I think, often will give that excuse of like, oh, well, there was traffic and I was late and that's the reason. And it's like, we understand it in those small everyday things. Yeah.
But when things change, oh, the nap changed, the thing changed, or they're growing up, they're running, they hit something, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
It becomes a bigger thing where it's like, oh, this now big change happened and it has to be, it's like, no, like we talked earlier, seasons change, things change, and you just have to, I don't know, get in your canoe and enjoy the river ride of this, the whitewater rafting, what is it, river rafting?
Yeah, whitewater rafting.
Yeah. But it's kind of how it is, you just kind of get bounced from bank to bank, and you're just like, I just got to get to the end of this, I don't know.
Totally.
Just hold my paddle, I'm just...
like roller coaster ride.
And the whole time you're just like, I'm just trying to stay safe, like I want to make sure I don't fall out, but some other mom over there is brave enough and she's taking pictures, not holding her paddle, like good for her. Maybe I can get some of those pictures later, because I'm just trying to hold on.
Right, totally.
I guess that's the whole thing, is just... I don't know, embracing it and holding on for the ride. I know it sounds like cliche, but...
No, but it's true. It's true. Yes.
You got to keep your hands and feet inside of the vehicle of this ride the whole time.
Yeah.
Just stay safe and have somebody else take the picture at the end.
Right, exactly.
That's so silly. Well, Alyssa, it was such a pleasure talking to you. Before we go, I wanted to... if you want to talk about your podcast and how people can find you and listen to you, and how can we send them your way?
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. So my podcast is called The Nurtured Mom Show Podcast. You can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts. And my Instagram is Alyssa Lindquist. And those are the two spaces I spend the most time. And the podcast is really like what we're talking about today. It's just like helping moms prioritize themselves in motherhood.
Which is such a big conversation and really should be more upfront.
Yeah.
Like, we're still people.
Yes.
We still have needs.
Yes. Yep, exactly. And I appreciate you so much for having me on. I love what you're doing. I think it's awesome to, like, bring in moms from all different walks of life and, like, their experience with motherhood. And I think it's great just to, like, share in this journey.
Well, thank you. I'm really learning a lot. There's so many things that there's so many things I didn't consider, because it's kind of like on Facebook. If you follow certain people, you're only going to see a certain amount of information, and you're just completely, you just don't see the other side. You don't know what it's like, or what the benefits or bad things about it. And it's having this conversation of finding out what works, what doesn't. And it's not, oh, you have to do this or you have to do that. It's just more, what's going to work best for you. Here, we'll close up so you can go spend time with your family. Alyssa, thank you so much for being here with me, for talking to me. If you ever want to come back on, I'd love to have you on again.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lily.
Of course. I hope you have a good week and good weekend.
Yeah, you too.
All right. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Sweet girl.
Aw.
Love you.
All right. Bye. All right. Thank you guys. Thank you for joining, and I'll see you next time on Mom Your Own Way.